Welcome to the Sowing Seed Podcast. One guy's thoughts on family, faith, farming, and financial freedom. Now, from the studio on top of a hill in a very, very remote location, here's your host, Matt Miller.
If we're not careful, we're all going to get run over. 10 years ago, a couple of months ago, in fact, just a month before I started School Spirit Vending, our national franchise today, but it was started with just one school in West Columbia, Texas, outside of Houston. 10 years ago, the world changed with the smartphone. It's only been 10 years, guys. Well, think of all the other change that has occurred in our society in the last number of years since that time. Travel agencies barely exist anymore because we all book our own flights. Bank tellers are becoming a dying breed because we've got ATMs, and now we can do mobile deposits right on our smartphone and never have to show up at a bank branch. Taxis are going the way of the dinosaur as Uber and Lyft and other ride-sharing companies take over. Hotels will eventually, I believe, go the way of the dinosaur because of companies like Airbnb. Guys, our entire society is being disrupted. And many of us are still stuck in thought process and otherwise in what we grew up with, not with today. I'll never forget. Well, first off, to give you an idea how quickly things change, I went to the United States Air Force Academy, graduated in 1989. Our class, still to this day, is known as the last class without computers. None of us can imagine life without a computer today or a smartphone. Well, my class was still doing papers and projects on typewriters. The class after us, the class of 90, was issued computers for the first time. Wow, world has changed a little bit. Now, I kind of wore that as a badge of honor for a long time. In fact, I think a bunch of us in our class did. It was something that brought camaraderie and all that as being the last class without computers. Well, I'll never forget, I was a first lieutenant at Reese Air Force Base in Lubbock, Texas, and I was asked to be the executive officer for Lieutenant Colonel Miller, who was the squadron commander for the squadron that I was a part of. Well, Colonel Miller called me in one day, and he needed to do a speech, if I remember right. And so he had me sit there and jot down some notes. Or actually, maybe he sent me an edited copy of whatever he was working on and asked me to retype it. So I went home that night, got on my brother typewriter, and proceeded to type out his speech or whatever, his paper, whatever it was. Man, I was proud of myself. The first time on the job, was ready to rock and roll. Brought it back in the next day, thinking that was the final draft, until 30 seconds into the conversation, he started marking the thing up again. And I got this look of horror on my face because I had spent hours typing that paper up on my typewriter. He looked at me dead in the eyes. He said, "Miller, you will go down to the office down the hall. You will teach yourself the word processing program. You will type this up on that, and you will never use a typewriter again." talk about a rude awakening. But thinking back on it now, I'm actually very, very grateful for that experience because it woke me up to the fact that I couldn't be stuck in yesterday or else I was going to get run over. It took a typewriter and a desire to stay in that age of my life instead of moving forward and following progress to change it for me. So what things are you holding on to today from the past instead of embracing the future? Guys, the world is changing whether we want it to or not. And we can either choose to hold our breath and hold on and hope that we can hold out in all the things from our past and make it by. Or we can choose to embrace the change and join in the revolution that's occurring all around us. There is so much opportunity today to simplify our life, to save time like never before. And for those of us having a desire to run a business or running a business already, to embrace those technologies out there to allow us to do so much more today than we ever thought possible. It was just about a year and a half ago that I found out as an example of a company called Schedule Once. It's a software platform online with a monthly subscription. And essentially what it does is once you have set it up, it allows you to link that scheduler with your Google Calendar, or I think other calendar app if you use something different, to block off times when you're available in your schedule, and then just to send a link out to anybody that you need to have an appointment with and allow them to pick a time in your schedule that you've already set aside to be available to meet. A year and a half ago, the only way I could have done that is by hiring a personal assistant. Today, I'm able to do that with, I think it's a $20 a month app versus how much would it cost me to have somebody manning the phones constantly to work through those details. That's just one example, guys. The more that we can do to stay informed, the more that we can be willing to embrace the change, the better off we will be. And this helps.
Thanks for listening. Check out our website, sowingseed.net, the Sowing Seed channel on YouTube, and if you got something out of today's podcast, give us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. Until next time, go plant the seed you need to succeed.